Hello and welcome to this episode of Beef Tips and Gravy. I'm John Houston, Director of Business Services for ProTrition Feed. We're glad that you've joined us this evening, and we're live once again at Williams Farm and Forage in Cedar Hill, Tennessee. With me once again is Todd Steen, Ruminant Nutritionist for ProTrition Feed. Todd, thank you for being with us once again. Today we want to concentrate our talk on stocker cattle, or backgrounding as some people in the area like to term it. But as we think about calves, first of all, that we might be raising at home. We see these good heifers behind us. We might be raising at home and weaning at home, but we want to keep them for 45, 60, 100 days before we take them to market. What kinds of things from a nutritional standpoint do we need to be concerned about to get these calves where they can get the most, garner the most money for them?
Well, first and foremost is forage. Forage is going to be the staple and the basis of the diet and of the ration. So the best possible forage that we've got, and you can see we got a little pasture going here this spring, and which would be great for them. I would still suggest that we take some forage assays to know exactly where we are. But assuming that we've got the animal health all straightened out with the vaccinations and the treatments and stuff like that, that they would be working with their veterinary on an animal health program. As far as the nutrition is concerned, we want to try to get as much forage into them as we possibly can and supplement that good forage to be able to substantiate the rate of gain. Now, we're only talking about, in this instance, you mentioned 40, 45 days or so. So for us to be able to, once we've weaned the calf off the cow, and we know we're going to have just a little bit of strength there, they're going to back up just a little bit, but to get them back on the right gaining path, to be able to make up that ground, we want to have a good feeding program. And depending on the forage quality, anywhere between supplementing anywhere between 1%, maybe even as much as 2% of body weight, depending on forage quality, to be able to substantiate that good rate of gain for us to be able to turn a profit off of them.
So we think about, calves that we're weaning at home, but let's think a little differently. And what a lot of people in the area do is what I call put together calves, So we're going to a sale here and a sale there, and we're putting together a good group of calves that are consistent, weight wise, genetics wise, maybe, but maybe even that are balling calves that have been weaned on the truck as they went to the sale. They're balling calves, and we realize we've got some animal health issues to deal with there, but any differences there as you bring these calves in from the sale barn that we know have been commingled and that type of thing?
Yeah, having a good starter program is going to be very imperative. Now, what would that look like from a nutrition perspective? We would want to have something that's got some good digestible ingredients to it, because remember now we probably won't know exactly what the nutritional background is. We may know a little bit, but we may not know the entire history about it. So we want something that's going to be very good and digestible for them. Not something that's going to be counterintuitive to their digestive system, but we want to have something that good digestibility, good soluble fiber, a good program to get them going, to let the animal health program start taking effect. So to get them started eating, get them going back, get them in a positive energy balance from that aspect of it. Depending on how the animal progresses, and it will dictate how long that starter program before we can move into what our basal growing ration is to finish out the program. A lot of cases, depending on coccidiosis, for an example, we may want to have a 28-day program for that. That may not be an issue. It depends on how you work with the veterinary, whatever the animal health program would be. But generally speaking, a 14-day starter program, if the cattle are responding, a 14-day program, and then move into the good growing ration. And always remember, good forage, plenty of good water. Want to make sure they have plenty of good, clean, fresh water.
So Todd, you talk about this 14-day program and these calves that are coming in that we are putting together that have been commingled, and realizing a relationship with a veterinarian when it comes to a drug in the feed as it relates to an antibiotic, something like chlorotetracycline. Some people call it aramycin, whatever, but a trade name of one of the types of chlorotetracycline. We put that in this starter feed at a higher level, and obviously, you know, over this time, we can go to a lower concentration.
Correct.
But we do have to have a veterinary feed directive in order to do that from the veterinarian. But we are at your ProTrition feed mills are able to do that. But if you do that, what levels of CTC or chlorotetracycline when the cattle come in, and talk to our audience a little bit about pulsing with that chlorotetracycline.
Of course, the highest legal limit that can be offered to cattle like that would be a full 10 milligram per pound of body weight, which is a very high therapeutic level. It is a veterinary directive, so there would be need to have that veterinary to be a part of that program. That is a 5-day program and would have to be withdrawn at that high therapeutic level, would have to be withdrawn after the 5th day. And that could be enough, depending on how the animal responds. That could be enough to get them off on the right track, get them moved on, get them cleaned up, and move on. And that'd be something you'd want to work with your veterinary. That would be considered a pulse, that 5-day. Some people will might need another 5-day period. That would be a second pulse, as the common vernacular would have that. Depending on how they react to it, depending on how feed consumption is going on, how they clinical signs of any type of disease, be it respiratory or whatever the case may be, how they respond to it. So hopefully they do respond to that, and hopefully they are responding to their vaccination programs as well too, so they can get past all that and get into the positive gain period. So shifting gears a little bit, Todd, we talk about, you know, one of our previous episodes about mineral supplementation, but when it comes to stocker calves or backgrounding, what type of mineral supplementation, if any, would you recommend or for us to think about that? Well, if there is a feeding program there, hopefully the mineral would be a part of the feed. It doesn't have to be, but hopefully that it would be, because that way you'll know the animal is for sure getting everything that they need. We want to have the good trace mineral supplementation, yes, but and that's important. But our major mineral is very important as well too. Our calcium phosphorus relationship needs to be there, the magnesium content. We can't forget about the vitamins. You know, we want to make sure that we've got plenty of vitamin supplementation, so our vaccinations and all of our treatments will work and get the animals moving towards a positive gain. So as far as the mineral supplementation is concerned, it's probably going to be dictated more on how the concentration of our major mineral, particularly calcium, making sure we have plenty of calcium, phosphorus, because that will match typically what we would be supplementing from a grain program. So that would be an important thing, but all of them are important to go together, because we want to make sure that we have that mineral status good, so the animal can help and utilize its vaccinations and move on.
So with these calves, obviously we're selling pounds, you know, that's what we're interested in, but, you know, we think about feedstuffs and pound of gain per head per day, and as well as, you know, what we can gain through our forage and all of that to put on pounds. But you and I both know, and if you've been around the cattle business very long, we certainly want these cattle to continue to grow, but we don't want to lay down a whole lot of condition on these cattle, or fat, if you will, on these cattle before they go to market. So when we think about feeding these calves, it's important, I think, and you might talk a little bit about, you know, we can feed lots and lots of feed to get a pound of gain, or we can feed certain types of feed in less quantities to get a pound of gain, and the digestibility that comes with some of that. So.
For sure. A lot of people want that real high rate of gain. You know, you only got 40, 45 days. A lot of folks want to make that 3-pound gain. To be perfectly honest, to be able to get those kinds of performance, you're gonna have to feed pretty much a high rate. you're pretty much going to be locked into 2% of body weight or something along those lines. Now, the question would come in is, what is the forage program? If we don't have the forage, if the forage quality is somewhat suspect, then we may have to get into the situation where we have a high inclusion rate of some other type of supplemental feed. I think the best case scenario is to get into the middle twos, run as much forage as we can, supplement that forage. We don't want a lot of cheap ingredients that is going to interfere with forage digestibility. We want to have it truly balanced. And if we have that good balanced ration, then that gives us the least opportunity to have a high rate of purchase feed. And then we can rely more on our forages, be it hay, be it pasture, be it some kind of a small grain silage, whatever the case may be. We'll just simply want to design that feeding program to complement that. That's the bottom line, is complement the forage program, balance the diets, provide the nutrients that the animal requires for our desired level of gain, and supplement it through that 45-day period, and keep them moving along, keep them eating good feed, and keep them eating that forage. That's the bottom line.
So just as we wind up here, Todd, we talk about, this balance between protein and energy depending on, the type of animal that we're feeding and what our goals are with that animal. But, you talked about digestibility and some things like that. Talk to our audience just a little bit about, for example, a 14% protein feed. That why not all 14% feeds the same?
They're not, and we're talking about a 14% as-fed basis. Is a typical standard type growing diet within our state and within this area, and that typically will match the forage program, generally speaking. Remember now, we're talking about a relatively lightweight animal, anywhere between 5, 6, maybe 650s. Generally speaking, that folks are going to take. And protein is still going to be a somewhat of an issue there to match their feed intakes, because at that range, their feed intakes are relatively low. As the animal grows, feed intake will grow along with that. And so concentration of protein becomes less of an issue there as it does in its relationship with energy. However, starting out, a good balance of protein, because we still want to grow, we still got muscle accretion taking place, that muscle deposition is still happening. We don't necessarily want to change that and put a lot of fat in them at that particular time. So a good balance of protein is going to be very important. As the animal is growing, if we start with heavier animals, if we're starting with 7s, maybe even 8s, and want to take them 45 days or something, then maybe 14% is not necessary at that, because their feed intakes are going to compensate for that pounds of protein that they're going to be needing, and then at that point, energy becomes as critical as anything. So the young animal protein is going to be important. Now, you made a comment that not all 14s are alike, and that's true, because depending upon the type of protein supplementation, could drive what the cost per ton of that 14 as-fed protein feed would be. And you can see some pretty cheap stuff out there that may carry a lot of, that may carry the protein to get that 14% guarantee, but does that necessarily complement the forage program that you have? Does that complement the total practice that you have in a 45-day period? Perhaps it's 60 days, whatever that program is. That's going to be the bottom line as to whether or not that truly complements to be able to pack that gain. Otherwise, at that weight range and at that level, a lot of that protein just simply won't get used, and that'll be a waste, and that's the last thing that we really want to do. So that's an important thing. We need to look and what does that provide? What is that 14% providing to us?
Well, Todd, once again, thank you for being with us on this episode. We want to thank Williams Farm and Forge for allowing us to be here with these great cattle, and appreciate them allowing us to be here. And if you have further questions or you need further assistance, please see your local farmers co-op, and the experts there will be glad to assist you. Thank you for joining us.